So for me, hiring is culture, culture is hiring. But really, that's at the end of the day. In fact, actually, most recently, we've been working with a talent sourcer, and she's been absolutely brilliant. She wouldn't have been able to do that if there hadn't been 10 years of this is who we are, this is what we like to do, this is how we do things.
Hey, Bootstrappers! Welcome to Bootstrap Stories, the podcast where founders, marketers, and thoughtful leaders share the most actionable tips on building a successful business. After meeting with hundreds of bootstrappers in the past years, I figured out that we all struggle to grow our businesses. But the truth is that most of us don't know where to ask for help or advice. That's why I decided to start this podcast, to give you all the keys to succeed at every stage of your business. All the tested strategies for solving your struggles and taking your business to a new level. No fluff, no bullshit, only a real talk between friends that help each other succeed. So today my guest for this episode is Bridget Harris, co-founder at You Can Book Me. Hey Bridget, and welcome to the Bootstrap Stories.
Hi, thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure.
I'm super excited. Your journey as a founder is really, really inspiring. And do you think you could maybe give our listeners a bit of an intro of when you started to become an entrepreneur and what was your path so far?
Okay, so I run a company called You Can Book Me. We do online scheduling, so it's an absolutely classic scheduling tool that many of you will be familiar with, alongside my co-founder and CTO, Keith. And we are sort of a classic, on the one hand, husband and wife business team. There's many of us who've come before, husband and families who just want to start a family business. That's not unusual. But for us, we came together as a technologist and as a sort of a business strategic manager person. And we started building products, or at least Keith started developing products quite a long time ago, just when when they started talking about things like Web 2.0 and e-commerce, and when websites suddenly became very exciting, and around 2000, and Keith was an IT consultant, he started to see the opportunity of building something that could be accessible over the web. So basically a web browser access cloud tool. And so in fact, I don't know how often we talk about this, but we had a load of products that we had kind of experimented with, tried and failed to build throughout that period, really. Our first one that we really invested in was in 2003, Tickboxer. But things progressed and evolved. And then we built a tool called When Is Good, which is a scheduling tool, another scheduling tool that does a slightly different job. And then from there, in 2011, we pivoted to You Can Book Me, because it's a business tool. It's for customers to use to make their time available for their customers to book them. So it had a much more of a commercial element to it. And as a result, for us, we were able to start selling that tool as a SaaS business, as a software as a service on a monthly subscription. Very, very low friction for us to do it as a team of two. And then we grew exponentially from there, because scheduling is by its very nature viral. And so we've built that business up from those early origins about 10 years ago to now. And we're around, I was sort of looking at it, we're sort of $5.5 million ARR. So we're if everything goes to plan, by the end of this year, we'll be hitting $6 million.
Nice. And how big is the team?
So we're about 30 people. We just hired loads of people. So in the last 12, so I'm slightly shocked by that number. The last we kept the team steady at around, between 12 and 15 people for quite a long time, actually. We were about 15 people up until literally a year ago. And then we took a decision to do an internal amount of investment into the company. So that resulted in a lot of hires. So we also have, we can talk about this because it's something I'm quite pleased with, is that we also now have established third-party partners. I mean, we call them partners. Some people might call them outsourcing, but we took a decision to outsource customer support, QA, and a certain amount of web development, which has worked incredibly well. And so if you count up all of those people, we're a bit more like 40 people actually working on the tool every day.
Oh, that's really nice. And I'm actually curious, whenever you outsource your customer support, how does that work exactly? Does it is it an agency, for example, a bit of offers that going to handle all the customer support, or is that like specific people you hire and that's it? Like, how is it managed overall, and how are people trained?
Okay, fantastic questions. So we had all of those questions. So let's start with the problem, which is that tier one support never goes away. People are always going to have a problem logging in with their email or trying to figure something out, onboarding. And many companies, once they get past a certain size, almost give up on being able to answer emails or answer questions in a timely way. Because if you get to a certain level of that, I mean, we have millions of people who use you can book me all the time. So, if we decided we could just give up on answering emails if we didn't have a system. But previously we had in-house support people who were part of our customer team. And what we really identified was tier one support is a kind of it's a rolling escalator, if you like. So you reach the top and you start at the bottom again. And so it's very hard in a very small company to provide good career ladders, good career development for people who come in and do tickets for you. And so I was really aware and conscious of the fact that unless I had a career path for people inside the company, and that is true, we have had people who started off in customer support and they've ended up in product management, marketing, education, product design. There's all sorts of routes through. But if you're trying to basically at scale deliver support, which is time zone sensitive, so basically people in the right time zone for the people who are sending you the emails, potentially language sensitive, you're really operating a different model to one which is a kind of, a small company that's developing skills and knowledge. So that was the first thing. It was recognizing that support has actually a materially different kind of characteristic to it, because it's not like you could have 3 people doing support and they're so great that within a couple of years you don't need to do support anymore. It isn't that kind of department. The second thing is that by scaling the company, we need to be able to be available in all the time zones and in all of the languages. So we needed to look to see, well, how are we going to do that? Because we're not going to hire 15 people, to live around the world just to do support for us. There's not enough tickets for that, apart from anything else. And so our answer was, we looked at, and there's quite a few of these companies now, so I would recommend any one of them. As it happens, we use Partner Hero, but there's other companies that we talk to, like Boulder is another one, that have specific teams of people who work for software companies, and they are based in those kind of time zones that you need them to be. So they are based often in South America or Central America, or in countries which have a lower cost of living, and as a result, there's a sort of a cost-effective nature to the organization. But what they do, and this is what mattered to us, is that their teams of people are employed by those companies. So they basically employ them. They have full benefits. They have full job protection. But the beauty is that they could work for You Can Book Me and do support for us for a couple of years. But their career ladder isn't limited by us. They can then go and work for a different software company who's a client. They can move around. They have their own colleagues and teams in Partner Hero that aren't the same as You Can Book Me. So rather than being the 2 support agents in amongst a team that's doing all sorts of other stuff, they could actually be in a much bigger team of support agents, all of whom work for different software companies under the same umbrella. And so we took that decision very seriously, because it involved a strategic decision not to hire support people inside the company. And to answer your question, they are basically fully embedded into what we do. So they sometimes go into their office in Honduras to work, but they are signed into our Slack, they're signed into our help desk software, and they have a manager, they have a team lead and a manager inside Partner Hero, but we also have a customer lead inside our company that supports them. And then the whole company works with them just as if they were, embedded colleagues, basically. But I honestly don't think I would look back now, because I feel like now, if we doubled the size of the customer base and we needed to double the size of our support team, we've got it's like a TARDIS. You're like, okay, I go in through that door and suddenly I've got access to many more highly qualified professional people to do support for me. Because at the end of the day, my priority is to make sure that our customers we reply to tickets within about an hour. So we have a very high level standard of support. So we're investing in availability and quality of training. And so we'd half trained them, and we basically work with Partner Hero to train them on what it is that we want them to do.
No, that's really interesting. And the first person like you kind of like trained, how exactly was, because you had someone within You Can Book Me that handles like the support before and was now like kind of the point of contact. So was it about like trying to build, I don't know, like a standard operating procedure with everything that needs to be done, the tone, the way to reply to customers, like et cetera, or was it mainly like a Partner Hero that was kind of like helping you? Because I assume that what's nice, as you said, with these companies is that they've been working with tons of other softwares. So they kind of have like this way of doing things, and they know what they're talking about. So what was kind of like the training process? Because I assume that for a lot of bootstrap companies, like they might have like this issue down the line of, okay, like you start your company, it's just like you and your co-founders, and as you said, like the job that's where you want to hire, like for the first time, it's usually like support, because as a founder, it takes a lot of time to do it. It's necessary in the early days, but as you're scaling, you're going to need someone to help you out. So what would be like kind of like your tips for someone who wants to get started who's maybe like afraid that the training and all these things don't go as planned?
Okay, so that's true. I had the luxury of 10 years of insight into what it is that we need. So you see, I think that at the very beginning, support tickets are not, you shouldn't sort of be afraid of support tickets, because they're your introduction into what's going wrong with the customer experience of your tool. So for a very long time, we didn't treat support as a kind of like a direct cost, if you like. We treated it almost like it's like a customer conversation, because if they didn't know how to click on something or work something out, you have to work on, if you're building your product, your UX team, your UI team is going to want to know what people are saying. So where we came to was, in the first place, Keith, as the first developer and You Can Book Me, he would answer every single ticket. And then when I came in to support him, I started answering tickets. And then anybody that came in after that, we're a support first company. So the culture has to be able to, this is not about pushing it under the rug at all. We've done this because we prioritize support, and we know about it, what it is. And because of that, we already have Sorry, just to explain for the sake of your audience, I've got COVID right now. I'm live at home isolating COVID case.
I don't know how you're still doing this, but for our listeners, we were talking with Bridget. She caught COVID coming to Europe, which and she thinks she caught it in Paris. So I'm feeling a bit ashamed right now. Nothing
will bring Paris down. It's nothing. Okay. It's such a beautiful city. So basically, this is on the shoulder of giants. This little one decision that we made to move to Partner Hero, because we already have a knowledge base. We already have a very rich set of answers and understandings of what the common topics are that come up. We already have a long-standing relationship with our customer support software, so we know how that works. We'd already done a lot of separation between customer support and customer success. So our customer success, our account managers, the people who are developing relationships with much higher paying customers, they're in-house, and we develop them differently. So in a way, what I'm saying is that we haven't outsourced support because we think it's hard and we don't want to do it. It's actually presented in a way where the agents themselves, they understand what the tool has to do, but they themselves can read all of the support documentation that's already there. We have a community forum for free users. We have webinars. We have an academy. We actually just have a whole ecosystem of information about how to use You Can Book Me. So our agents really are there to help either identify and pinpoint a problem. It might be something that we haven't come across before, or to help steer our users towards the right information. And we can quality control that. And so then in terms of when they first started, when they joined us, Partner Hero, so this is what I like about it, is that we are in charge of training a new support agent to understand how to use our tool. But Partner Hero are there to ensure that the people that they hire, they're employed by Partner Hero. They're the ones that have an entirely different contractual relationship. And so their performance level, their competence level, their language skills, their professionalism, all of these things, this is taken care of by their employers. And we're there to say, well, these are the things that if somebody sends you this email, this is what we'd expect you to do. So I wouldn't jump in and say, and your first support agents are also going to be the most insightful to help you build the product that you're building. So I wouldn't outsource it to people who literally don't work for you. So I think it's part of a journey. It's part of an option. It would be something I would definitely consider doing if this was my second or third product and I was really familiar with it, because we had to separate support from customer success first, and then we could outsource support. But most tools, you've only got one or two people doing all customer conversations. So it's not really set up for that. It's set up for companies who are a bit more mature down the line.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it makes a lot of sense because, as you said, your customer support or success, they're going to get tons of insights on the product. So at first, I think it's important to have them really within the team. And as you're scaling, I mean, the experience you have with Partner Hero is just also really good, because if your users are scaling, you know that you can have access to a talent pool and onboard them, and you know that it's working. Exactly. So it's really nice. And I mean, you've been doing this for 10 years, facing some competitors who had huge amount of fundings. So I'm also curious to know from the start, what was kind of your acquisition strategy? What are the things that you heavily focused on? How exactly did you grow to such a stage?
Well, we grew because we didn't fail. So, we could have failed. There's all sorts of things we could have done where we would have failed. But by not failing, we grew, because scheduling is a viral growth product. So you can't help but grow, because every time somebody books you, they're familiar with your booking tool. So then, that begets more accounts. The acquisition strategy for customers was quite interesting, because I can quite happily put my hands up and say we made a whole load of mistakes as first-time entrepreneurs. We certainly don't, make as much money or as big as we probably should have been or could have been had we been watching podcasts like this. And if we were starting up, I mean, it's one of the things that you realize in hindsight what you should have been doing in the first 5 years that you didn't do. But the things that we did do was that we started to, the only thing we did was learn from our mistakes. So you have to follow your instincts about what is it that we want and what are we trying to go for. And for us, there was a very straightforward and reasonable motivation if you're bootstrapped, which is that you have to make money. You can't make a loss because you're not getting money from anywhere else. And so now it's a very sort of special feeling, because all the money that we have in the company comes from our customers. And that's how we get paid. And I realize now it's a very strong motivator for our team, because we can say, if you're wanting to know what to do, ask the customers, because they're the guys literally that are paying us. So it's a very great and simple North Star to say that you're funded by customer money. Whereas when you're funded by VC money or investors, you're actually basically working to a different business model, which is you need to grow X amount so that we can sell our shares for 10 times the amount that we paid. That's a very different business model, perfectly legitimate. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. It's just that business model has got nothing to do with the selling the product to the customer. The customer becomes one of those sort of, also rands in the plan. Whereas with us at the very beginning, we had to be led by customers and what they were willing to pay for. And our original acquisition plan was freemium. So you make it free, and then everybody piles into a free scheduling tool. They all start booking. It's all great. And then a few of them will pay you for their premium upgrade. In hindsight, I don't think, I haven't done enough work and research on this. I'm sure there's some people who've looked at this a lot. I would be very, very careful about starting a freemium tool again. I certainly think bootstrapping it was a bit mad, because you're literally making no money. You're building a lot of software and nothing is coming in. And then that's the make or break. That's your vulnerability to failure, because it can break you, working too hard on software that millions of people are using and you're not getting any money for it. It's a terrible recipe for building a business. So in hindsight, I probably should have taken on some VC cash right at the very beginning, had I known what we were doing, but we didn't. So we didn't. But the freemium business model works really well if you're very clear about what your free tool does and what your paid tool does. But for us, it took us a while to learn that lesson. So our free tool was very complicated and people were falling down all the time, and we were still building it. And so even though it did a great job to help us grow, it didn't do a great job to help us make money. So we had to do a lot of, in the sort of about 6 years ago, we basically started to refactor what we had to separate out the free tool. So the free tool is a very simple, straightforward grid. Those are your times, pick a time. There's your email. You've been booked. It's in calendars, job done. Whereas the paid tool speaks to a lot more complexity that people want and are prepared to pay for. Customization, managing shared calendars, accessibility, the kind of sort of extra things that you can do in terms of customizing a flow, which is going to make the experience much more bespoke and specific to whoever is using the tool. Otherwise, we're a one size fits everybody kind of tool. So we started to segment and focus and hone in on the people that we knew were going to give us money, and build the paid product around those priorities. And equally, that meant us having to make the free tool much more ruthlessly self-service, which included actually by extra point, it included taking support away from the free tool, and replacing it with community forum and all the rest of it. And then in fact, now quite recently, we're basically bringing support back into the free tool, because now it's a sort of, we've stabilized what the product is. Whereas we had to start focusing on our customers and supporting them in the early days, because they were paying us. And
I think it's really interesting because a lot of people I think that, like their customers, I think a lot of people confuse customers and users, especially when you have freemium. So how long did it take you to kind of decide, okay, we're going to stop, answering all these messages from free users and just focus on people who are actually paying us to build the best product possible?
I don't know, it's probably about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And it was something where I realized half the company was doing support. But you see, the thing is that you can't free users, first of all, nobody's making you use free software. So you come along, you want to use software, you can create an account, you can use it, you can walk away. There's no commercial relationship with a free user. So you have to be super clear about what that free user is for. And partly it's about doing a good thing. So we have plenty of free users who we actively give the software away for free to. So for many years, we gave the software away for free to schools, to public schools in America. Or not for profits, or we discounted it heavily or whatever. So, free is not always free. People are providing a service. Maybe they're not charging for that service, and therefore we can help support them. But the other thing is that free is about growth. So if you have lots of free users, they're going to grow your tool for you. Because they're going to use your software, they're going to do bookings, and they're going to grow the tool. But if we couldn't support our existing customers in the meantime, because we're growing so fast that we literally didn't have the resources to support our customers, then in a way, you've got this opportunity of either making money or growing. And so what we decided to focus on is making money. So we're not as big as we probably should have been if we'd kept with the free tool as much as they want, we could have invested in it. But in the end, what we prioritized, and again, this is very much close to sort of a bootstrapped philosophy, is that we prioritized financial stability, financial security, profitability, and getting a proper commercial product market fit, as in we now have 22,000 customers. We're very invulnerable to any kind of major change in terms of this. I mean, COVID being a horrible example, but that was a good example where we were affected, but positively and negatively by COVID. We certainly didn't go out of business. So with 22,000 customers carefully built up over time, we have a very stable and strong business. And that's what we prioritize. So we didn't prioritize anything else. And the reason why is because if you've got a customer giving you money, so that they've got their businesses depending on their scheduling page to get in customers for their own requirements, I didn't think it was justifiable to say, well, look, I'm sorry, we're all like flat out here, focused on building our business and growing it really fast by opening up all these channels. We didn't have the resources to do it. And I also felt it wasn't fair to the people who were literally giving us the money. So it's a trade-off. And now we're a lot more stable and secure. So now okay, maybe we could open up the taps again. We can, give more away to the free users and open up this world because we can afford to. Whereas 5 years ago, we basically just burnt out. We couldn't do it.
That's really interesting. I like this approach, of like growing first, like being very stable, make sure that, your product is solid, that like the features that your paid user are benefiting the most from. And then down the line, if you feel like you want to have this virality or even push even further, then you can start opening a bit more and get like more free users. And I think it's actually smart also like to give also like support and these human connections with some of the free users, because, not only they can convert to paid users, but also they are able to down the line, like recommend even more and saying, yeah, I'm free users, but, I have chat with their support, loving the tool. It's very like great and easy to use. So I think it's really smart. And within those 10 years, like if you had to do like things from the start and do a few things like differently, what would be like kind of the key things that you would change?
So it took us a while. I would say, so the company is about 10 years old. And in the first 5 years, it was a massive exponential growth of the use of the product. And because of that, we just, our wheels span quite a lot on lots of topics. So things like hiring the team, what to prioritize in terms of the product, making good decisions and working with good people. Like we did work with good people. We did make more good decisions than bad. As I said, we didn't fail, but my criteria was that we didn't fail. It's incredible that we got it off the ground. For myself and Keith, who neither of us have ran a business before, had any experience of what these businesses are like. Literally had no idea what we were doing. And so, in a way, I could ask myself, well, what do I do now? And then the only thing to say is, well, I wish I'd done then what I do now. So what I do now is we invest heavily in who we hire and who comes to work for us, and company culture and what the company is about. Because unless you're really good, and this is possible, to build a product that basically goes off all by itself without any interaction from anybody else, like it's just a self-perpetuating star out there in the galaxy. One way or another, you need a team of people to help you, and who those team, where you get that team from and who you work with and what their motivations are and how you support them. That is really, really important. It doesn't have to be a huge team, but I focused a lot in the last 5 years in who we hire. I think that what else would I have done differently? As I said, I think that this whole shift that we did between the free tool to the paid tool, I think that needs to be explicit. I think you actually literally need to be able to do a business plan for the free tool, which is like a growth and marketing plan, and then a business plan for the paid tool, which is your actual revenue generating tool. And the two are linked, obviously, but one is not like a subset of the other. And I think that's what we thought about it for too long, was it was just one big merging thing. And I think that we, we were spread too thinly as well. So the other thing that we did about 5 years ago is sort of niche down on who we knew we were most successful with, and that was teams. So it doesn't matter whether it's teams in universities or teams in big companies or teams or departments. You Can Book Me is at its best when you've got a group of people who are all managing and sharing their availability, and there's somebody who's trying to control that one way or another through customization, or webhooks, or or languages. So we're really good at languages. You can Book Me spun up into Japanese or right to left Hebrew or Arabic. Our date time management of calendar availability is I would say, essentially best in class. So if you have a booking service where you literally need multiple calendars, multiple time zones, multiple languages, multiple teams in multiple availabilities, and you need it to be accessible and you need it to be compliant, then You Can Book Me. You will not get a better tool. So we knew, and we invested in all of those things because that's what brings in a really stable and successful relationship with a lot of customers. But at the beginning, like any business, you're kind of grateful for anybody giving you any money at all. And I think we should have, I wish we'd had more hindsight about following. I mean, I listened to the last podcast interview you did with the email marketing company, whose name escapes me, but I was really impressed.
Nathan or
no,
or
it's
Martha?
a woman.
With Martha, okay.
Martha, yeah. And the way she said that they just niched down to, I really like what she said. She said that they spoke to a lot of people who said, well, this isn't going to work because I'm not interested in this. And if you hear all of that, you're like, oh dear, that's bad. But actually that's a good sign when, as she said, you speak to the group of people that want it and they go, God, this is brilliant. I'm really happy. That's what you have to follow your nose for, is like, go for that group of people and learn everything you can about them and you'll be successful. And again, we're now spread very thinly. We have a load of people in all sorts of sectors who use You Can Book Me, in addition to the group that we focus on.
No, that's really, really interesting. And how long would you say that it took you to kind of niche down a lot and figure out all these things? Because usually I think it's very tough, for founders when they get started or even as they grow, to have this one specific target, because You Can Book Me, as you mentioned, first it's freemium. So a lot of people can actually use it. So you have potentially 1,000 different use cases. And then, from people who pay, you might also have a lot of different type of users. So how do you find your focus? And was it more about asking yourself, what are the clients I like to work with? Or how exactly did you went to that route of niching down and finding this sweet spot for you?
Well, some of it just, it tells you, it speaks for itself. You realize there's a group of customers, all of whom use you. There's no churn. There's a high retention rate or net retention. You're doing really well. One thing I didn't mention is that we changed our pricing. So another thing that we did about 6 years ago was we changed our pricing because we realized that our pricing plan was not right for our group. So one of the big things we did in order to help target the group that we wanted, which was teams, is that we moved to a per calendar pricing. So rather than going for premium, business and professional, whatever it was, business, gold, silver, bronze pricing. Again, there's lots of merit in that. But what we were finding was it wasn't fit for purpose for attracting very large teams, who might, we have people who use us who've got 200, 300 calendars. People are using large numbers of calendars that we could see had the same kind of support in the customer success and account management requirements. But for people who are giving us money for one calendar a month, we needed to really make sure and identify how we were supporting them and what they needed. So it was about a separation of those customer groups by volume, by how many calendars you're going to need from us, because the two are often different. So we did that. We made some significant changes in the product. We took a lot of features away that were there for one group of customers that we weren't. I'm really sad, unfortunately, but a good example is we don't support iCal. So we used to be able to integrate with Apple calendars, but I won't bore the audience with talking about iCloud versus iCal versus, but Apple Calendar software is a bit of a pain.
Yeah.
and the problem is that Apple itself is syncing calendar data between the three versions, whether it's on a tablet or on a browser or on an app. So as a result of that, we were constantly letting people down because they wouldn't get their availability on their You Can Book Me. So in the end, we thought we're just not very good at this. We could devote 50 engineers to figuring out every single use case of everything that Apple's ever going to do about calendars. But what it's doing really is giving us a huge amount of friction and headache for a not very good experience for the customer. And also it has no commercial segment for us because it's usually solopreneurs or single people who are using, not many businesses. There's no, you've basically got Microsoft or Google in terms of the business world. There's no business who's running its business on iCloud, as far as I'm aware. Maybe a design agency who are addicted to Apple, but it's not a business tool. Yeah. It's a consumer tool. And so we thought, right, well, we're not really here for consumers. So we're not going to support Apple. So it's quite tough. It's very, very tough. And you get a lot of stick for it. People will throw some stuff at you because, they just don't understand why you're not going to support their iPhone calendar app. But then we also do all the usual stuff like the content or the targeting or the encouragement or the marketing activities. That all then has to go towards the segments that you are targeting. And it takes a long time. And there's a lot of patience involved because, like you said, once you're already embedded into a company after many years, it is very hard to turn a super tanker around on anything that you're doing. So it takes some time and some strategic thinking about what's important.
No, I think what you said, I think it's going to give a lot of courage to our listeners, who thought that they just need to keep adding features as they grow. But actually, as you mentioned, I think once you narrow down your target, you should definitely remove all the useless things because one, you want your developer team to be as focused as possible on what brings value to the customers. And on top of it, you shouldn't try to please everyone. I think it's important to have kind of this narrowing down approach.
Yeah, and this, so it goes back to support again. So we were supporting 25 different use cases and features that weren't being properly invested in, that were letting people down. So they're emailing us and say, why does this not work? And you're like, oh, okay, well, actually, because this is the workaround and this is what you need to do. And you think, well, I'm not getting a lot of value out of that. They're definitely not getting a lot of value out of it. They should really be going to a different tool that's going to suit their needs better. We're getting support tickets. This is like lose, as far as I can see, and you just have to. So we did. I can't remember I think it was about 20 features we slashed. Because everybody loves talking about agile development and they talk about iterative development, and I get that because customer comes along, says that they want something, and then little small team, and you build it, and then you iterate, and then you test, and fine, great, everybody gets it. But the problem is, if you do that for 5 years, then you do have essentially a bit of a massive furball of everything that every customer's ever said that you want. So you have to bring it back down to, in some ways, what your plan is, what your product roadmap is, who you're, get a North Star, figure something out, give people permission to say, no, we don't do that. And we're never going to do it. Or, yeah, we do that because we're supporting some legacy users. So we can't bear to stop it, but we're not supporting, we're not changing it or adding a different feature to it. And it's really, really hard because nobody, including myself, likes to say, no, we're not going to do something.
Yeah, and I think it's tough, when you're leading the business, because you're the one talking to the customers and you understand, why it's bringing value to them. So for you, it's I want to do everything, I want to please everyone. But in the end, I think it's tough, but it's a necessary call, as a founder, to kind of make those tough calls and tough decisions, so you can kind of grow faster and address better a specific problem. And, when I ask you about the thing, that we would have done differently, you mentioned hiring. and you have like 10 years, you know, with the product and with building a company. So I'm kind of curious, like how do you like spot, you know, talents? How do you like make them want to join a bootstrap company? What are like the tips that you could give to people who are like hiring like their team or scaling their team? Because right now, like I know you invested heavily in HR recently, so
yeah. So the first thing to say is I've only just recently hired an HR people operations type person, okay. Which means that for the last 10 years, the chief executive, I've been doing the HR. And the reason why is because it is, I mean, it's like wanting to build a house, but taking no interest in the building materials. You know, like some saying, I don't care, you know, you can build it in straw. And famously, you can build it in straw, you can build it in brick, you can build it in wood. You know, like if you take no interest in the building materials, how on earth do you know what you're going to build, what's going to happen? And that's really what it's like with people. So for me, hiring is culture. Culture is hiring. You don't know how to, I mean, hiring, I can tell you, oh, we post on We Work Remotely or LinkedIn, or, you know, this is what a job description looks like, or, you know, there's all sorts of other things. But really, that's at the end of the day. In fact, actually, most recently, we've been working with a talent sourcer, and she's been absolutely brilliant because she's gone around and she's essentially actively been attracting people to apply for our positions. So she wouldn't have been able to do that if there hadn't been 10 years of this is who we are, this is what we like to do, this is how we do things, this is our culture, this is what to expect, this is how to explain stuff to potential candidates. So that takes a long time because you have to, because then, you know, it becomes very reductionist, like, well, what kind of company are you, or who are you, what is your culture, what is important, you know, and you can't just make it up as you go along because people detect that. So the things that are very important to me and are in the company values are things like transparency and simplicity, sharing the problem, you know, a collaborative form of problem solving, and in, you know, inclusion, diversity. We what we call about it, we say that you have to be, you know, that tolerance is not just about saying what you're not going to have. Tolerance is also about saying what you can have, and it's, you know, it's about building a big tent, as they say, with all sorts of people who you might disagree with, as well as building a tent where you don't have bigots, I guess would be the summary. Like, don't hire bigots, but that doesn't mean to say just hire people that vote the same way as you, because that's not going to help either. So, you know, you have to think about that too. So based on all of those values, that's the one thing I've brought to this company. I couldn't bring any kind of experience in building software products because I never have done it before, and I've never built a business before. But I did spend 15 years working in politics in the public sector. So if there's one thing I did know about is how organizations can grow politically, how things happen, where people make mistakes, what the problems are. And so I decided from the beginning to have, for example, to aim, and it took us a while to do it, but we have it now fully embedded in the company, an open, transparent salary structure. So everybody knows how much everybody gets paid. It's amazing how this one thing, it's a very hard policy to introduce at a later stage, but if you start as you mean to go on, you can do it. That one thing changes everything about the way you hire, because first of all, there is no secret negotiation about what the salary is. You can say, this is what we're going to pay. And they go, well, I need to be paid a bit more than that. You go, okay, fine. And then you have to look and say, well, if this person's coming in, they're going to be paid this amount. I now need to look at everybody who is going to be working alongside them. Is there a gender gap? Like, you can't have people who started off working for you on a certain amount, and then because you get more successful, you can afford to basically pay higher in the labor market, that the people who came in like, oh, I'm always 20% lower than everybody else because I started working when they were poor. Like, that doesn't make any sense. So like, no, everybody inside the company, their salaries have to go up as a result, because they know how much the new guys just getting paid coming in. It removes the sort of exposure that any company has to existing gender or any other kind of discrimination gaps that occur. It also makes you very invulnerable to the sort of the aspirational hiring, like, oh, if I just pay this person on 6 figures, they're going to be brilliant. They're going to come in. Because if they come in, if you're hiring somebody for 100,000 a year, you better be damn sure that they're going to do a good job. This is in Europe, of course. I know that salaries are different in America. Because you can say, well, really? That's like a lot of money every month. What are we doing in terms of where's that coming? Where's that going? It also changes the way we also employ people. And I say that because there's so many remote companies that say they have a big team internationally, but most of those people are on contracts, and it's a kind of a hidden, people don't like talking about it. And it's not to say that you can't have perfectly legitimate contracts with people who are very happy to do it. And I'm a big believer that good people who want to work for you, if they say, look, I only want to do this, it needs to be like this. There's a vehicle and a mechanism. If it's led by the employee, I get it. But from my general principle, as well as transparency, I also have a basic principle of security, like the employee experience, their job security really matters. So we have vehicles inside. So we have a vehicle inside France, Portugal, Spain, the US, and what's coming up is Germany is the next one. And then, of course, the UK, where we're registered to employ somebody. So we have people on payroll. Okay. And they have their own social security and benefits systems, essentially, from their own countries. And it allows us to provide a vehicle to give them job security, even if they're remote or they're working. This might be the first time they're working for a company outside of their own home. And that's a massive...
Just a quick question regarding like the vehicle, like technically, how does that work? Did you have to open like a company in each country, or do you go through like a kind of like a partner who's hiring them for you?
Yes.
Okay.
So there are, so the answer is, in America, we have an entity, and it's partly led by the requirements and the regulations of the country. So in America, I wanted to use a tool called JustWorks, which is actually a PEO. It's actually a professional employers organization. And the reason why is because I used to set up registrations in different American states, but America's basically like Europe. So it's a bit mad. It's like, okay, just because we want to hire somebody in North Carolina, and now we need to set a totally different set of corporate arrangements in North Carolina to wherever else we were. Whereas JustWorks is a nationwide PEO, and it supplies health insurance for everybody. So you can have individual employees in each state, and they all get access to the same high quality of health insurance, which again is one of my priorities. So we have an entity. We have You Can Book Me Inc. set up. It doesn't trade in America. It's just there for the purposes of employing the people who work there. But around the same sort of time, we discovered that it's very easy. All you need is some very good accountants and lawyers to set up basically a proxy registration in that country. So we have in Spain a registration as employers. So if you think about this, you're not set up as a company entity, you're set up as an employer. And France is the last country, the most recent country we've done this for. And because, this is, again, fantastic country, we love it a lot. But oh my God, the employer's costs in France are really significant.
Yes,
and,
I can tell.
But that's great because everybody's on holiday the whole time, which is great. But that's the cost of the employer. So why would the French government stop other companies wanting to come in and give them 40% on top of any pay that they're paying? Like, of course they are. Basically, it's a tax generating source for, like, employ our people and pay us tax. Fantastic. France doesn't need an entity, in order to collect more taxation. It's got its model. And so our preference is therefore to have, we've just done that in Portugal. We're about to do it in Germany. It means that to all intents and purposes, as an employer in that country, our people are working for a company like any other company in there. We have the same obligations in France as any other French employer to manage the, whatever it is, JRTT and all this other stuff that you guys have got, which is, all power to you. But it's ended up with this fascinating journey of comparison of different governments and how they handle employment, because we have to learn it all, because we have to be compliant. So we do all of that. And then in order to, it takes is some time to have the right conversations with the right accountants and lawyers to get the right partners. And then after that, it's just monthly payroll. You're not really doing anything different to your current home country. You're just running payroll, and they charge you like they would any other employer. So it's payroll usually costs between 25 and 50 euros a month per person, and that's and you end up with a little bit of legal compliance, and they do all of your your tax payments and stuff. Nice. So that's worked out really well. I would really avoid setting up an entity just to employ somebody, because of course employing but once you're there, we now have a really strong development team in Portugal and Spain and France, because we're hiring. So back to the hiring, you make a series of decisions about, well, we want to be this kind of employer, or we want to be able to offer these benefits, or we want to be this, we want to be fair, or we want to be equitable, or this is the transparency that we think is important. It leads you to doing things like, let's set up as employers in these countries. And then you realize you actually have a hiring USP, because there'll be a whole load of remote companies wanting to hire somebody in Portugal, or indeed actually with the new remote change because of COVID, a whole load of people who were working for their companies being hired inside whatever country, wanting to move back to their home countries and then not being allowed to work for them anymore. And so our vehicles to hire people are a way for us to be able to say, yep, you can work for us and you get your social security payments paid, and we pay your tax, and we pay health insurance, and you get your, we have people in our company who are on maternity leave, or who, they're taking advantage of home benefits protected and offered by their home country. And we comply with that. And that's a very strong signal to those people. So I could talk all day about hiring, so I'm sorry if I went off on a bit of a tangent. But
it's super interesting.
But going back to, when we decided to outsource support, that was because I realized I reached the point where I don't think we can offer a really good experience and a good employee experience for people inside You Can Book Me to work for support. We did the same for QA, exactly the same principle, that QA, it's always going to be there. You're always going to need your software to be tested. It's never going to go away. And as a result, you either have a QA, one or two QA testers just doing the same job, manually testing with a bit of automation for years on end, burning them, and you'll burn them out, or you go for something different. And so we went for a QA outsource as well, because they're employed by the QA testers. They could test for us for a few years. They'll go test for another company for a few years. They can do all sorts of things, and their employment is taken care of by their company. And it's the same. So, the only situation where we would either use a PEO, and again, there's plenty of them nowadays, loads of them offering essentially a kind of TransferWise, but for employment, like they've got their entities all over the world, and then you employ via that thing. That's fine, and it works for one or two people. But after a while, I realize now I'm just a bit of a control freak. So I just want You Can Book Me on the pay slips as much as possible.
That's I think it's really great, like from like what you're saying about setting up a USP as a company, making sure that everyone knows what you're looking for, what are the standards. I really like what you mentioned about transparency. It's something we recently launched, and I think it's definitely great to skip this type of gap that could have happened, or negotiation step, etc. At least you can clearly show the path for your employees of how they can evolve. When you have like a salary grid that's fully transparent, it's great to hire people under their own terms and in their own country. So no, I think it's definitely smart. And I was also wondering, because you've been at your business for 10 years with priorly like obviously you worked in politics, so you had some experience, I would say, but a different one. And when you switch to business, and you've been doing this for 10 years, how do you learn new things, train yourself, and is it just I don't know, mastermind, coaching, what have you done that you felt helped you grow for all these problems?
Well, definitely. You just have to understand. It's the classic thing of the unknown unknowns. I don't know what I don't know. But the way I see it, or the way I've started to see it, is, and going back to hiring, is that for a first-time business entrepreneur, I've only really got the ability. I can be a strategic thinker. I can have a vision of like where I want to go. But in terms of how to get there, you've only really got the next sort of 6 months ahead of you, which is well lit. These are all the people I know work for me. This is my customer base. This is the decisions that we've made so far. And I'm pretty sure over the next 6 months, this is what's going to happen. It's really hard, and they don't come along very often, when a decision comes along where you've just got to take a real gut jump. So for example, changing the pricing for us, nobody was doing that in scheduling. There's all sorts of things that we did which nobody else had done previously, but it felt right. It was like, we're pretty sure our current pricing is wrong. We've just got to do it. And we didn't really have there was nothing that we could have done that would have helped us make a better decision, except for we've got to go for it and double down and invest and do it. So I'm all for a certain amount of business instincts and acumen when it comes along. But the rest of the time, a lot of this stuff has happened before. It's fairly predictable. So one of your jobs is to surround yourself with people who've seen further down the road. So they know, oh, I did this and 4 years later this happened, or that this is what we tried to do, or I built this before. So the people that we've hired recently have that kind of character. They've done it before. So we hired somebody, head of engineering, where we needed to build out our engineering team. We needed a lot more management, and we didn't have the in-house capacity to do that. So she comes, and at one point over the summer, it was embarrassing. We basically had no developers. There was we had a bit of a crunch point in terms of the Great Resignation and all sorts of other things happening. But I knew that she'd done it before. She came to us from a company where she'd been managing nearly 20 people. So it's like, okay, it's stressful for us because we now have to hire a whole load of developers, but she's done it before and she's going to manage them, and it's all going to be fine. So you have to start broadening. So in terms of the people you hire, you have to start hiring people who know more about a topic than you do, because there's no way you can keep a top-down structure where you're telling everybody what to do. Your head will explode. So you have to invest in your ability to attract very talented people who know what they're doing. The second thing is, and again, I applaud your podcast, and I follow you on YouTube, and I see what you're doing, because you have to be able to reach out to a like-minded community. So bootstrapping, there's lots of different companies that won't have anything in common in terms of their commercial outlook, but the way they've been funded changes everything about how they've made decisions and who they are. And I think that for me, the Business of Software conference that's been going on in Boston and in Europe twice a year, obviously, right, COVID is, although I'm at Business of Software next week in Cambridge. Conferences like SaaStock, I've really enjoyed going to, because Alex does a great job of attracting a very diverse group of founders. And I think 1 in 3 people I met at SaaStock were bootstrapped. The masterminds that have sort of emerged from that are people I've met at those conferences. And there's other ones. MicroConf is another one that came out of MicroConf came out of Rob Walling and Mike. I can't remember his second name, but you know what I'm talking about. You know who I'm talking about. These are people, they're running all their conferences because they built software companies, usually bootstrapped, and they know what the issues are. And you just have to throw yourself into those networks and find like-minded people and talk to them, and realize that you will find people who understand what it feels like to be at your stage and know what a bit down the road looks like, or they'll also help you hire people to help support you.
No, that's really true. I want to be cautious of your time because time flies. To wrap up kind of this episode, I always like to ask 3 questions. The first one is, what's your favorite book or podcast that you would recommend to another Bootstrap founder?
Oh, to another Bootstrap founder. Okay. Because I had my favorite book, but I don't know if I'd recommend it to a Bootstrap founder, because my favorite book is Lord of the Rings. But I think that's because I think Lord of the Rings probably does summarize bootstrapping quite a bit, because, you're trying to prevent evil somehow. You're trying to kind of have good win over bad. And it's a very long journey. It's a very long quest. And sometimes you end up only 2 of you and nobody understands what you're doing. So I think there's some good analogies there for Lord of the Rings in terms of a book. For bootstrapping, the books that I always recommend, although I don't think they're applicable anywhere, they don't necessarily apply just to bootstrappers, are Well, actually, I could recommend 3. So Turn the Ship Around is a fantastic book around leadership and how to manage people. Crossing the Chasm, which again helps in that conversation about how do you segment, how do you actually identify who you're going after. It's a great book about strategic thinking. So Crossing the Chasm is about strategic thinking. Turn the Ship Around is about management and empowerment of a team. And then actually Rand Fishkin, Lost and Founder, which is a recent book, well, a few years ago, but it's the founder of Moz, who just recently exited from Moz, and he started a new startup, Spark Toro. And his book, Lost and Founder, I've just finished reading. And it's an incredible story of essentially where you can come from a VC funded background in terms of building a software company, and what lessons you can learn from that, and now what Rand is doing now, which is bootstrapping. So without being too evangelical about it, I would recommend his book too. Podcast, obviously yours.
Thank you.
But that's it. You have to essentially find and listen to other bootstrapped people like you, incredibly successful and really inspiring, because that's what we all want to know. We all want to know it is possible. You can get there.
Awesome. And the sense, also thank you for the kind words. The second question I also ask is, we all have like tough times as a founder. What is the one thing that you do to kind of like regain energy during like these tough times?
That's going to be very different for anybody. So like I have something I do, but I nobody can learn from that because I'm a musician. So one of the things that I do is I play music. I actually literally play. Because
what do you play?
I play the fiddle. I play the violin.
Nice.
So when I do that, when I'm learning tunes or I'm playing with a group of musicians, it's a fantastic vehicle. So this would be the takeaway is it look for things that are really hard to do, that require your absolute attention and concentration, that are not to do with your business, because it helps train your brain that you can do something. So if I'm learning a tune or I'm playing with other musicians, I have to be really focused on it. Otherwise I'll make a mistake and sound bad. And so the problem with stress, or if you're in a bad place, is that you start to compound your thinking, and you suffer from circular thinking, and you get even more stressed, and you're preventing yourself from making a good decision about anything. So my advice really is that you have to take a break. You have to essentially separate yourself from the stress and instead go and do something totally different, which requires your attention. So it's not just about watching television, because you can watch TV and you can still scroll through your phone, and you can still panic and write emails in your head and hate your life and decide to move to Mongolia and start a sheep farm instead, because you don't need to do this, like whatever thought process you're having. So you need to be able to sort of say, separate yourself and say, so going for a run, because that's hard work physically, or anything physical is obviously good. But also like something that it might be a bit counterintuitive, like invest in some volunteering or helping other people, because when you're helping somebody else, so I know that this is a very small scale. Like I'm not in any way trying to claim any credit for this at all. It was like ludicrous. But over the COVID lockdown, I helped volunteer in we had to like help people with food baskets when they couldn't leave their house, that kind of thing. So I did a bit of that. And I realized it's very satisfying just to help somebody else, because their needs at that point were more important than mine. And even if I had lots of stress to do with COVID and the company and business and what's going on and children and family and so on, actually just doing something for somebody else can be very energizing, because it just, in a very I'm not trying to be spiritual or evangelical about something, but actually a reminder that every other human being out there has needs. And if you're a capable software entrepreneur, you're probably good at other stuff. Doing shopping for somebody who can't leave their house is hardly a difficult thing to do. But by doing it, it's a kind of, I would say, helping other people for me is definitely something I do as a way of avoiding the stuff that I have to do. And because it makes me feel better, it does energize me. And I'm also feeling like, well, at least I'm doing something good, rather than, sitting planning my Mongolian sheep farm.
Which can be an option,
Why not? Why not?
No,
on next week's episode.
Yeah. We're following Bridget into Mongolia. No, to be honest, it's I really agree with you. Like if you can, like having strong focus on some things that just like takes your mind out of everything else is a great way. Love it. And last question: favorite Bootstrap founder, and also why?
Okay, joint prize. 2. If you haven't interviewed them, then you should. Peldy from Balsamic and Natalie Nagel from Wildbit. Wildbit, have you ever heard of Wildbit? They do Postmark. So the Wildbit's the company. The products are Postmark, which is transactional email, and they have other kind of DevOps tools that we use them for email, transactional email, a bit like SendGrid. But Natalie Nagel and Peldy from Balsamic are 2, really good friends of mine in terms of Bootstrap founders. Both been going for a very long time. Wildbit's been going for 20 years. Peldy's been going for 15 years. Both of them very determined and committed to their customer base and their team and their products and how they bootstrapped and what they did. And I just have a lot in common with them. And so in a way, it's like a tribe where they're not different to me. I'm not sitting there going, oh, one day I might be like you. Like actually fairly similar, a lot in common. But both of them are extremely confident and determined about who they are and what they want to build. Slightly different. Both their companies are slightly different to You Can Book Me, and slightly different to each other. But it's their determination and their confidence that I admire, because that's ultimately all you've got really about this is why are you doing it, is because you want to do it. Nobody's making you do this. So you have to be pretty clear on why it is that you want to do it. And I've always found Natalie and Peldy very, very inspiring.
That's really great. I'm putting them down on the list of people I need to have on the podcast. Awesome. Well, to be honest, it was really, really cool as an episode. Loved your energy and all the things you shared. I don't know, to be honest, how you managed to do this with COVID. So thanks a lot again. For our listeners, if they want to check your website or follow you and follow your updates, what's the easiest way for them?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn. I've basically closed down all other social media channels. I closed down Twitter in January and I've never looked back. So I'm on LinkedIn, Bridget Harris. I'm sure I'm searchable to find me on LinkedIn and connect with me. That would be great. You can email me, bridget@youcanbook.me. I'm not that difficult to get hold of. And it's nice to hear from people, and anything I've mentioned that anybody wants any more information about, I'd be very happy to forward on some info.
That's really awesome. Thanks a lot, Bridget. It was awesome having you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Bootstrap Stories, the only podcast where Bootstrap entrepreneurs share their journey in all transparency. If you enjoyed this episode, don't hesitate to leave us a review. And in case you want to see the interview, all episodes are live on the YouTube channel. Check out the link in the description and hit subscribe if you haven't already. Have an amazing day and make sure to also join us in our amazing Bootstrap community where we all helped each other to become successful and grow a profitable business. Take care and talk to you soon.